Dr. Nadia. And Dr. Nadia, I have to say I was really impressed when I read your bio and learned that you had volunteered when you were 15 years old. That says a lot about the Egyptian woman, huh? Okay, Dr. Nadia will speak about Ethiopia and Egypt relationship. Dr. Nadia.
Well, I feel funny sitting up here. I've been a member of this club for several years, and I do hope I will join again when I sort of settle down. I'm going to talk to you about a very delicate subject, which is very hot now, and you will probably be reading about it, making heads in the newspaper. So I'm just going to give you the facts. The fact is that in the early 20th century, in 1902, 1929, the British, sorry.
It's a burden I've carried all my life.
The British were all over the place. They were in Egypt, in the Sudan, and all over Africa, and they were very clever people. They have really discovered the source of the Nile. And they've discovered that Egypt was such a fertile country. It is a fertile country because the water that comes from the plateau of Ethiopia carry all this wonderful mud that over the years have been deposited in the valley in Egypt, and particularly in the delta, which has become the most absolutely productive land in the world. And they have discovered that the cotton that grew up there was so wonderful, and they wanted to make sure that Egypt will give the cotton that they will take to England in their developing textile industry, which set the industrialization revolution in Europe. And they went to the Emperor of Ethiopia and talked nice to him and sort of got him to agree on law, an international convention that would ask that Ethiopia would not use its water, that it would not be allowed to build any dam or any way of redirecting the water to its fertile land, and all the water would, from the Blue Nile that comes from Lake Tana and the whole high plateau of Ethiopia, the Blue Nile that rejoins the White Nile that comes from Lake Victoria in Khartoum in the Sudan, and it forms a magnificent Nile that goes through Sudan and Egypt. So the idea was that all this water would be reserved to Sudan and Egypt. And of course, Ethiopia didn't have much voice at that time because it was not developed. And that was that. And Egypt became the Nile, and the Nile was Egypt. And it allowed the magnificent creation of the pharaonic civilization and of a very prosperous Egypt. Now, the problem is that today Ethiopia is not what it used to be. Ethiopia is developing among the highest percentage of growth of population in the world. It's going to hit the 100 million probably pretty soon in 2050. And as you can all have been witness, they're poor, there's famine, there's drought, and they are the richest country in terms of water. And they do have good agricultural land, but they cannot use it. I remember I was in the World Bank, and some colleague had prepared a fantastic project of agricultural development in Tanzania, and he was counting on him for his promotion, and everything had been agreed, and I was the environmental officer, I didn't count at that time. And I said, you cannot do it. He said, you're crazy. No, you cannot do it. It's illegal. You cannot take water from the Nile for your agricultural development project. And it is, at this time, the bank realized that they cannot lend for agriculture in all these countries that are riparian. So they called a very confidential meeting of all the riparians. And it was for the first time that the representative of Ethiopia accepted to sit down on the table with the Minister of Water Resources in Egypt to discuss matter. And that was in 1990. So it is really quite recent. But before that, what happened, that is today a crisis. The crisis started really openly in 2010, in May 2010, because Ethiopia today is pretty sort of sure of itself. You heard that it is developing in a fantastic way, and they see that they are at advantage politically, strategically, and they drafted a law. They made a meeting in Uganda of 7 countries in Africa, and they drafted a law that, decided that these countries can build structure over the Nile to take water, and the law, of course, was against international conventions. And that was really a big problem at that time. Egypt went to, Ethiopia went to the Organization of African Countries to say that all the legislation that took place before under colonial should today be considered non-valid. And of course, the Organization of African Countries refused, because if you look at the map, the frontiers have been drafted by all these colonial powers, lines are like this, not taking into account the people. So they refused to declare the countries no good, and Egypt found itself in a situation where it is in danger. Why? Because the Ethiopians suddenly in 2012 started building a huge dam to completely change the course of the Blue Nile and to use this dam for hydroelectricity and also to agriculture. And they say, look, it's our water, right? It's our natural resource. Saudi Arabia has oil, we have water. We will sell it as Saudi Arabia sells its oil, and why not? And Egypt, well, look, we will take care of you, but you have to ask, right? And if you're not happy, well, sorry, okay? We cannot give you that water. Can I say 1 minute?
Yes, 1 minute.
1 minute. And they got very, very mad when Anwar Sadat went to Israel and offered water for peace, and they wanted to sell the water to Israel. And the Egyptians said, hey, you're taking our water gratis and you're going to sell it. Come on, so the problem is that, and this is what I really want to talk about today, is
it's the second.
Okay, ask me questions. The problem is the problem of the rule of law in international relations. And that is the big problem that is going to probably, that thanks to Ethiopia and Egypt and the Nile, we are going to be looking completely differently and changing our mind about the way we live in this world, about international relations, and about law in general.
Thank you so much.